Joining me right now to discuss the president's response, or lack thereof, is Michael Reagan, son of former President Ronald Reagan. He's also a political commentator and I'm sure has some insight onto what's taking place. Michael, it's great to talk to you as always.
Good to talk to you. It's really interesting because I was just tweeting at Reagan World, which is my Twitter account, asking Hollywood, where are you, Hollywood, in support of Israel? And if you've noticed, no one in Hollywood has come out in support of Israel. Amazing.
All right, we can stop there. We can start there, I should say, Mike, if you want to talk about Israel and your Twitter account, Reagan World, at Reagan World on Twitter is where you tweet. You can find that response there. So where is the response? I would say it does seem like that Hamas in this instance, and maybe many of the Palestinian Authority members, are more isolated than in conflicts past here. But you mentioned Hollywood here. Where have they been?
Yeah, where is Hollywood? All the Jewish directors, all the Jewish producers, all the actors. I mean, I'm telling you, it's filled out here with the Jewish population. And again, just like they vote for Obama and they vote for Democrats, the reality of it is, I don't think they support Israel at all. And I think they're proving it out here that they haven't come out and made one statement at all in support of Israel in what they're going through with all the rockets being thrown into Israel by Hamas, a terrorist organization.
Now, we have heard Secretary of State John Kerry, we've heard the President and White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest say very clearly that they believe that Israel has a right to defend itself. You would think that Hollywood would follow suit, but I guess that's not going to be the case here.
No, it's not going to be the case at all. And I mean, those are just words from Kerry and words from the President of the United States and the White House and what have you. I mean, nobody in the world takes what they say seriously anymore. I mean, this is the White House that draws lines in the sand and then they don't cross it. I mean, this is just silly what's going on. You bring up, what's going on in Ukraine. I look at how the president's reacted to the Ukraine. I remember how my father reacted, not only, to the downing of KAL 007, but also how he reacted when that TWA flight was hijacked during the 1980s also. I mean, in one case, KAL 007, my father was at the ranch and went back to Washington, D.C. to monitor it, called it exactly what it was, terrorist act and what have you, that was appalling and what have you. And on the TWA flight, he was going to come to the ranch. In fact, he was going to come to the ranch to celebrate Nancy's birthday in July. July 6th is her birthday. And instead of coming out to the ranch, he stayed in Washington, D.C. to monitor what was going on with that TWA flight that we lost that Navy person in who was thrown out on the tarmac. Ronald Reagan understood perception. You might be able to be President of the United States at a fundraiser, be President of the United States at a golf course, but the perception is you're having fun when the rest of the world is on fire. Ronald Reagan knew that. That's why he went back to Washington, D.C. when KAL 007 went down, and that's why, in fact, he stayed in Washington, D.C. when that TWA flight was, in fact, in trouble.
Well, Mike, I'll play the role of defending the president here, as some Democrats had, so we can talk about this a little bit more. A lot of folks who are defending the president are saying that, look, it's a different day and age than it was back in 1983. The president is in constant contact with Wi-Fi and whatnot. And also, in this political day and age, you cannot go back on your commitments at these fundraisers. It's an ugly reality of politics today, but this would be the same thing happening were a Republican in the White House. Do you think any of those defenses of the president's actions here are fair?
I am so glad you brought that up. First
I thought you might be.
Anybody comes out to the Ronald Reagan Library, anybody comes out to the Ronald Reagan Library in Simi Valley, go through Air Force One. The President of the United States didn't need Wi-Fi anytime, during his lifetime. The fact of the matter is, the President of the United States is in contact with the world no matter where he is 24/7, whether he's at the ranch, on a golf course, or at a fundraiser. You're absolutely right. But the perception is, what are you doing? And when you're at the White House, the perception is you're being President of the United States. When you're a fundraiser, the perception is you're at a fundraiser. And let me tell you something. The night after my father was shot, there was a fundraiser, in fact, for a group of people who were coming to the White House to be there. And my father asked me if I, in fact, would take his place at that event. It was the Republican Eagles. They were coming to the White House, big contributors to the Republican Party. My father, in bed, with a bullet in him asked me if, in fact, I would take his place and go to the White House and be with those people that night. There are other people, they're called surrogates, and they can go out, and I'm sure the people in the room, if those Democrats in the room could not understand why the President of the United States could not be with them, then shame on them for not caring either.
Well, there you go, and I think that's a great rebuttal to those claims that have been out there already. Let's talk a little bit more about a different issue that's also, an issue that's plaguing your state, the state of Arizona, the state of New Mexico, Texas, and other border states as well, and some states that don't have a border with our southern neighbors here, and that's the immigration crisis. In your home state of California, of course, which borders Mexico, we saw that protest in the city of Murrieta. What else are we seeing that's not being talked about, Michael, on the immigration issue?
Yeah, you're seeing an invasion is what you're seeing. Let's be honest here, it's an invasion brought on by lack of policy out of Washington, D.C. and the President of the United States of America. You know, what's really sad is that these children are really being used as pawns. And that's exactly what's going on. They have become political fodder now, and will still never have an immigration policy. The Republicans are fearful of doing anything for fear that somebody's going to say something about them, that they may want amnesty, so they say nothing. And the Democrats don't care. They love it because they're going to use these children as pawns to try and keep the Senate of the United States in the November elections. But this is what happens when nothing is going on. I stated in an op-ed piece last week, you can find it at Newsmax, I said the only way this would change is if one of those pilots decided to take one of those planes full of those children, and instead of flying it to wherever they fly it to, fly it to Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C., and let those children out in Washington, D.C. on the steps of the Capitol. That is the only time you'll see anything happen. And I would ask Newsmax TV to do a survey here. Find out how many members of Congress have ever in their lifetimes, other than partying, been to the border, any border of the United States of America to see what we in California or New Mexico or Arizona or Texas, in fact, go through. The President of the United States turned down Rick Perry. I'm sure that most members of Congress have not gone there, but they've been to Iraq. Oh, they've been to Afghanistan. Oh, they've been to Bali. Oh, they've been to Hawaii. Oh, they've been so many places. But God forbid they would show up on a border of the United States of America and see what in the world we are in fact facing. Shame on them for using children as pawns.
All right, well, Michael, we'll try to get that poll going. And also, you mentioned your column on Newsmax.com, the Gipper's Corner. Folks can check out your insights there as well. But I want to talk about this issue, too, the humanitarian crisis aspect of all this. And I know a big issue for you is stopping human trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have the
absolutely right.
We have this discussion
why you're seeing
of the Wilberforce law here. There are some folks that want to change that. We know how there's some unintended consequences of how that law is being used today. Are there any concerns that if that law is changed, there are only going to be more unintended consequences?
Yeah, well, there's always unintended consequences because there's always unintended lawyers, is part of the problem there. I mean, that law was written because of human trafficking. The reality of it is they never really funded it. The reality is there's only between 200 and 750 beds in the United States of America for children who are brought into the United States of America.
Wait, say that number one more time. Say that number one more time, Michael.
There are only 200 to 750 beds available in the United States of America for children who are brought into America strictly for human trafficking. By the way, there are no beds available in the United States of America and no money available in the United States of America for children who are in fact recruited into human sex trafficking who are American children. It is a $9.5 billion a year industry in the United States of America. There are 100,000 American children who have been recruited into human sex trafficking. 59% of the children who age out of foster care are recruited into human sex trafficking. It is outrageous what's going on. And again, we are doing absolutely nothing when you have no beds for American children. By the way, American families who are watching this, if your child runs away from home, within 48 hours of them running away from home, they are recruited into human sex trafficking. There are 300,000 children in America on the cusp of that. And it's interesting, we talk about it because of the influx now that's going on our borders, but we never seem to talk about it outside of those parameters.
You do, Michael. You do talk about it, and we appreciate your efforts on that. And of course, to read more of Michael's comments, you can go to Newsmax.com and his routine column, regular column, The Gipper's Corner. You can also check him out on Twitter at Reagan World. Mike, great seeing you and great talking with you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right, so the issue of human trafficking, near and dear to Michael Reagan's heart, also to our viewers as well. Much more to come here on America's Forum right after this.